Welcome to the England Rugby Pod. Thanks for downloading episode 60. Are things as rosy as they seem? And what does Don Armand have to do? You're listening to the England Rugby Pod, the rugby podcast that believes England will win the World Cup in 2019. Hey guys, welcome back. Another midweek episode here. I'm joined, of course, by Dan. Hi, mate.
Andy, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. I've not done a lot of prep for this one. We didn't really have a theme going into this episode, so I'm kind of relying on you a little bit.
Well, it's good timing because there's a few things I actually want to talk about on this one. So I'm glad that that's the case, actually, because there's a few bits that I wanted to bring up and just I'm intrigued on your thoughts. So, you know, like if we're all like on a night out and things, like everyone's like, "Oh, Dan, you're such a legend. You're so cool. You're so handsome. You're so much fun." And
sorry, mate, I missed all of that.
Well, don't worry. I'll be there. You'll be able to hear it back. And then with you, it's more you're Mr. Fun Sponge. Today, we're actually going to do a bit of a reverse because I actually want to. So something I've been thinking about.
You want to be a fun sponge?
Sorry?
You want to be a fun sponge?
Today, I'm going to be the fun sponge, and I'm going to rely on you.
I've got to be honest. You're not really teeing up this episode.
well.
Hey guys, I'm going to lead today's episode, and it's going to be really boring.
No, it's not going to be boring. I just want to do a reality check.
Okay.
Because I've been having a bit of a look, and I'm kind of relying on you to tell me I'm wrong.
Okay. Do you want to be wrong?
I do want to be wrong,
okay.
But there is a chance that I may be overstating things. But so we're saying like English rugby at the moment in a great state of affairs, right? With 22 from 23 wins, plenty of dough in the bank. Eddie Jones going well, good. You know, we've got good cover in each position. I'm going to question how strong a position English rugby are in right now. So first and foremost, I don't know if you've seen, this is literally breaking news from last hour, but Northampton have just sacked Jim Mallender.
Really?
Yeah, it's literally just come up. That's not the sort of the basis of where I'm going. But
is that one of those reaction to form? Have Northampton lost a few on the bounce?
Yeah, Northampton, because don't forget, they got destroyed by Saracens' first match. And then they had a really good run of form. And now they've like had some really poor form recently. And they also lost. They lost again this weekend to the Ospreys when they were home. A match they really should have won. If you look at teams. And, I mean, they've sacked Mallender. I think it was probably overdue, but... You know, Mallender was the longest serving head coach, director of rugby, whatever we want to call him, up until a couple of hours ago or whatever.
And maybe it's one of those. Maybe it's one of those where he was going to go at the end of the season. This was going to be his last season, and
I don't think so.
Does it seem quite?
I think it is a sacking because there's been a lot of. So from what I read, I think he may have lost the players a bit of almost a bit of a Richard Cockrell type scenario.
Yeah.
Last year.
It's an interesting one because it's a bit like George Ford and his dad.
Yeah.
For Harry Mallender. It'll be interesting to see how he reacts to that. And also, I guess another similar example might be Owen Farrell and how he's really kind of come into his own since his dad's no longer part of the England setup.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, could Harry Mallender? Yes, Harry Mallender. It could go one of two ways, right? And especially as we're talking about him as a potential sort of England player. I mean, he's got moments of genius. There are times where I am concerned about his play, but will he really come into his own? Will he be able to sort of release those shackles, or will it be more of a George Ford scenario where he's a bit like, do you know what? That's my old man. You've just sacked my old man. I don't know how much longer I can be at this club.
Yeah. But in the case of George Ford, it wasn't the end of the world, was it? Because it resulted in a pretty positive move. Looking at what he's doing now.
Yeah, I mean George Ford could have pretty much gone anywhere, couldn't he? And Harry Mallender by no means is going to be short on options, but he won't necessarily have the same he definitely won't have the same options as George Ford. But that was something that sort of fed into my first point. So I want to question English rugby at the moment because, and this is, I just want to say this. Let's have a bit of a reality check because at the moment everything's positive, positive, positive. So the top tier European Cup, so the European Rugby Champions Cup. Okay, this weekend, Wasps played La Rochelle away and they lost. Quins played Ulster at home, they lost. Exeter played Leinster at home, they lost. Northampton lost to Ospreys at home.
There's a pattern here.
Leicester lost to Munster away. Bath lost to Toulon away. And yesterday, Saracens got absolutely destroyed by Claremont at home. I mean, Saracens, who have been, yes, it was disgraceful. I mean, I've seen more backbone in a jellyfish than
there's another one. I thought you were the fun. I thought you were the fun sponge this week.
Well, I can't help myself sometimes.
Too funny for your own good.
Exactly. It's just too much fun. But seven English teams. No, 7 English teams playing in Europe. 4 of them at home, and we lost every match to French teams, to Irish teams, and to a Welsh team. And that's just the top tier. I mean, we had I think a couple of the teams won in the sort of second tier European competition, but Gloucester only just beat Zebra, whatever they're called, an Italian team.
Yeah.
London Irish got smashed by Edinburgh.
Do we know if they were kind of all putting out, full strength first teams?
Well, yeah, pretty much. They were strong teams. They weren't, these weren't under. So, I mean, Saracens had, for example, you can't lose by that many points when you've got Owen Farrell playing. And the Saracens had Owen Farrell playing. That it goes against science. I mean, Saracens are now playing in a different dimension. They've single-handedly proven string theory, but there are multiple dimensions because I think it was 46-14.
Wow. Yeah.
Is this a one-off or is this a concern?
It's probably a bit premature to call it a concern. Particularly, you take Saracens as the example here. They seem to have taken the biggest hiding, and yet there's no doubt this is a side that 9 times out of 10 is going to be on the other side of that score sheet.
Well, are they? They've just lost their last 6 games in a row.
Have they?
Yeah, in all competitions, they've just lost 6 games in a row. And think how many England players were in that team.
Yeah, okay.
Including 3 Premiership games, one of which I was at.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. It's not good, is it? How does that impact? I mean, if we're looking at this, if we're looking at it from an England point of view, as in the England team, World Cup 2019 and all of that, I don't think it's the same. Like, I think Eddie Jones has created not a bubble in terms of either you're in or you're out, but there's something different going on there, I think.
Yeah. So, mate, sorry to jump in here, but I completely agree with that. However, how long is it till, if this sort of form continues with our top clubs, if clubs which have like our England captain involved, people like Courtney Laws, Piers Francis, some young up and comers in the likes of Malinder having their head coach sacked, how long till a little bit of that leaks and gets through that England elite player bubble?
I know what you mean. I want to believe that Eddie Jones is the kind of guy that will say, the minute there's any sign of it, I don't want you here. And kind of just prevent it from coming in with a sort of. Yeah. I feel like that's where he is, and that's how he would approach it, and create, and maintain that bubble, with an open door policy for anyone else that wants a piece of it, who's willing to put in the graft. But you're right. I mean, it's not great. It's not great from a selection point of view for England when Eddie Jones is looking obviously at performances and individuals and kind of deciding, particularly where there are 50-50 calls, which we've got in a handful of positions. It's going to make life difficult. And I guess actually some of the positions that maybe we felt were more secure, he might well decide, do you know what? you've been playing bloody badly for the last 5 or 6 weeks. The world might believe that you're the first port of call, and I'm not talking about Owen Farrell because I don't think you can do that with him, but make drastic changes. I mean, I don't want to see it. We've said Six Nations is about putting out your first team, your kind of your World Cup team. If it was tomorrow, and I want to see that. I don't want to see lots of sort of trial and error at this stage with only 2 years to go. But if people aren't performing, do you have an option?
So to put this the other way around, and this is another point I've done, and this is how God, I must have had a shit week because I'm starting to question Eddie here.
Oh.
So I've had a look and I've been watching him closely. How the fuck is Don Armand not in that England squad? He is, if we're looking at flanks, just back row, take out number 8, by far the best performing in the Premiership and has been all season. I mean, a level above the rest, with perhaps the exception of Underhill. And this is something that I'm looking at concerning me. So, yes, I know Eddie Jones has no hesitation. You look at Haskell, for example, hasn't played well. Sorry, mate, you're out till you get back. But how well do you have to play before you can... If Eddie doesn't want you, how well do you have to play before you can get in? So,
I mean, it does make you wonder if there's politics involved.
Yeah.
And I say politics, personalities, maybe Eddie Jones and Don Armand, have a real issue with each other, and Eddie's just like, well, I can't have him in my team. I don't know. That doesn't sound
Which is fair enough if that's the case, but I doubt it. But yeah.
But you're right. I mean, we're not the first to mention it. We're not. This is not the first time we're mentioning it. That's probably the one call that he's made or not made, as the case may be, where you have to question it. And as far as I'm aware, he's not come out and no one's asked the question and had him respond. So I don't know what his thinking is on it. But yeah, you go on Twitter whenever rugby is very much at the forefront of people's minds, and one of the first things you see floating about is, what does Don Armand have to do?
Hashtag justice for Armand. Is that what it is?
If it isn't, it should be. Look at that. Dan Wood with a hashtag.
Mate, I've got Twitter book up and running now.
You are all over this Twitter book.
Yeah. I might Twitter... What's it called to Twitter it myself?
Yeah, it's called Twitterizing.
It's about time I learned how to Twitterize.
We clearly need to give you a little crash course.
Little crash course, yeah, because I want to be part of a Twitterati. So.
Yeah, there you go. You see,
is that a real thing?
It is a real thing.
Oh my God! I just made that up. That's amazing.
You wouldn't be one of them, but.
Oh, right, fair enough. But yeah, sorry, we've moved aside there. But so Armand, the other one who I'm looking at and jumping here, Danny Cipriani, as an attacking fly half, is the best in the Premiership. There's no one else playing better attacking. Like, he plays so flat, he sees the gap, he's got the pace, he's got the nous. Now, does he have the all-round game to win the England squad? I don't know, but I think he feels like he's been ruled out. If I'm Cipriani, whose contract comes up to the end this season, at the end of the season, Don Armand, I don't know his contract situation, but I'm thinking if by sort of this time or even, this time next year, if I'm not part of the England setup, I'm thinking I'm not going to be. Why would I not go to France and get paid? Because Don Armand, to me, is worth 700-800k easily in France, and could probably get it. And then, are we going to start losing those players? So this is my question, I guess, overall. The England setup that Eddie Jones is running, he's doing a brilliant job of it, clearly. I mean, results tell us he's doing an excellent job of it. But is there a plan B? Like, can you afford to not pick the best players because they don't quite fit in? Surely if they're the best players, they'll be able to adapt to fit in. Are we being a bit naive?
I mean, look, we've massively speculated in saying that there's not that there's some sort of a cultural misfit. Whether it's he doesn't get on with the coach or he's not a team. He clearly is a team player. But do you know what? I don't know we don't know what the story is. Is it simply that Eddie Jones doesn't see in him what the rest of us do? If that's the case, then I think part of me is thinking, well, he knows a lot more about rugby from a coaching perspective than I do. So there's clearly something that I'm missing.
Eddie Jones said that the reason he hasn't selected him is because he doesn't think he's good enough in heavy traffic. Now, my issue with that is every commentator week in, which I hate this expression, every commentator week in, like, Armand's been ripping up trees again. I'm like, well, maybe if he focused more on his rugby, he'd get in the England squad. But, yeah, did you see what I did there?
I did.
So the fact is, no one else sees that. So I wonder if Eddie's just using that.
Yeah. It's a difficult one. It's annoying. I want to see him in an England shirt. I want to see what he can do. I feel like there was the Autumn Internationals was a missed opportunity to see that. I guess we're massive fans of Courtney Lawes, and we were enjoying having him in the back row. But he doesn't have to play there. It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because Courtney Lawes has been ripping up trees in an England shirt.
Probably how he got his top knot.
He probably is. What do you do? I mean, Rob Shaw in the back row is Eddie Jones looking at the likes of Rob Shaw as kind of providers of experience that isn't going to be there in 2019, but he wants it at the moment. Is there a game plan, and does he have someone like a Don Armand in mind? I mean, you would think not, because you'd think he'd have utilised him, in Argentina or.
You'd think so, right?
I mean, we need to find a way of reaching out and asking the question. That's what we need to do.
Yeah, we do, because also Don Armand can play a 7, and people like Underhill's defence. Dom Armand made 30 tackles this weekend. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever made that in a season.
You haven't.
Let alone in a match. Good to know. Thanks for counting the stats.
All right.
But it's like he made 30 tackles. Like he offensively, he's good, and attackingly, he's good. He's got a ridiculous haircut, so I can kind of see why he got left out.
Joe Marler gets in there, doesn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Joe Marler does.
So clearly, haircuts is not the reason.
Yeah,
and I can't. That's because that was really the only one I could think of.
Yeah, the haircut. I mean, that made sense, but now it's
what we need someone listening. Out of the millions of followers that we have, #300. Someone can reach out and ask Eddie Jones, what does Don Armand have to do? Come and tell us, please come and tell us.
Yeah, we need to know. And it's also, like I was saying, Cipriani, I understand the flaws to Cipriani's game. I do get it. But do we need...
I think the other issue with Cipriani is he
is a cock?
Well... Possibly. He certainly
may be the best guy ever. I have no idea.
He certainly was, but yeah, he's grown up a bit since then. But he's. I know that they say he can play fullback and various other positions as well, but he's not. He's a fly half.
Yeah.
And we don't really need a fly half.
Well,
and I think I've said it before. Cipriani is not really. He's not a finisher. He's a guy that runs a game his way, and when it works, it works.
Actually, I agree with that. And actually, I don't know if you've got it from that, but do you know what? I believe that's what Eddie Jones said to him. Oh, I only see you as a starter, as someone who wants to start, and unless you prove yourself to be the person good enough to start, you might not be involved.
And so it's do you have him or do you have George Ford?
Oh, well done, Fun Sponge. That's a good value. That's a good point.
I've been waiting for you to make it.
You'd have been waiting a lot longer, so I'm glad you jumped in.
Don Armand, I think, is it will continue to be that big question mark. I think we might see him in an England shirt. in the Six Nations. Don't know why, but there you go.
So Don Armand will continue to be the elephant in the room.
I think so. I think it has to.
Much like my date last weekend.
A lot like that, yeah. Pretty harsh to describe her as an elephant, but.
well, I'm looking forward to seeing her again tomorrow night. Actually.
You should have heard what she said about you.
Good for her.
Anyway, I think until Eddie Jones can actually respond directly to that question and kind of offer more than just a kind of quirky little one-liner about heavy traffic, it's going to continue to be a question that people are going to debate, isn't it?
But it's a genuine debate, right?
I think absolutely. I think an awful lot of people, certainly when I've been watching on Twitter, so many people contact us and say, I don't know if they think we're somehow officially connected to England and the RFU, but they contact us and say, well, what does Don Armand have to do? Why is Eddie Jones not selecting him? And as I say to them, guys, we're not at liberty to discuss that.
Nice. Well played.
Thank you.
Well played. We might have just given it away now, but it was fun while it lasted.
But yeah, we will continue to debate that, no doubt, and we will continue to keep an eye out for some sort of official response to that question, because I think it's one that people want to know the answer to. One way or the other. If there is a reason, and I think this is the important thing is. Speaking for myself, I trust Eddie Jones because I think he's earned that trust in what he's done. Yeah. So, if he has a reason, and he clearly does, and he tells us what it is, then I'll be like, okay, fair enough. But not hearing anything just makes it it almost feels like, Don Armand, who's that guy? I've not seen him yet. And you don't really want that from your coach when he's planning to take you all the way to the World Cup final and win it in 2019.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to feel like he knows everybody. That's everyone he has at his fingertips. He knows them all, and therefore he's selecting the team based on all the information. And if he's not, and I'm sure he knows, I'm sure he's got an eye on Don Armand. There's probably someone tasked with, he's probably got someone tasked with watching every single game and reporting back. But
yeah, and quite possibly, and we may be missing something, but let's move on from old Don Armand. He only gave me enough money to chat about him for 10 minutes or so. So the other
money's worth then.
yeah, tight bastard. And the other thing I wanted to ask, so the other thing I was thinking, and I don't know why I've suddenly decided to do a critique of where things are going wrong.
It's good because we'll soon get back to singing England's praises regardless of everything. So it's good to every now and then just have a little reality check.
Yeah.
And at the end we can say, do you know what? Forget all of that. England are the greatest team ever.
Yeah, and hopefully that's what we'll be doing, is saying, do you know what? I've just been a miserable dick that week, ignore me. But whilst I'm being a miserable dick, the other thing I was looking at, like, who have been the form players of the Premiership? So obviously Don Armand we spoke about. Didn't have a great game last week, but generally Henry Slade has done well. The likes of Trinder have done well. The likes of Courtney Laws done well. And what's something going in? Sort of consistency of not consistency of performance, but consistent. They're playing week in, week out. Apparently English is my second language today, but they're continuously playing. They're playing week in, week out. Now, here's another problem, and is this an issue? I don't know, but the likes of Owen Farrell, some of our sort of superstars, are we wrapping them in cotton wool too much? Are we? Because the likes of Owen Farrell, he played like once in the autumn. Saracens aren't often playing him, and then when he does come on, we're expecting a superstar performance. Yet there's bound to be a bit of rust there. Are we giving them too much rest? Yes, player welfare, huge thing. But that's going to be huge across the board. Let's not just say player welfare is only relevant for superstars, because that's just the arsehole approach. But if what I'm worried about is we're saying the likes of Farrell, who's so important for England, which, let's make no mistake, it really is. If we're not giving him the game time, it's the same with anything. Can we then expect them to perform at their peak? And I'm not saying Owen Farrell's not performing, so I'm just using him as an example. Yeah. And there's other players. Are we, are we wrapping them in cotton wool too much? Not giving them, purposely making sure that they don't get all this time on field, and then when they come out, suddenly expect them to be 100% crisp and ready. And is this something we need to address?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is we're talking about two different things. We're talking about protecting the England superstars, but are Saracens going to do that? They're interested in winning competitions. They're interested in winning the Premiership and generating revenues and everything else. So the argument's always been about trying to minimise that. It's the clubs don't want their players getting injured when they represent their country. So I'm not convinced that Sarries are wrapping him in cotton wool to protect him for England.
Well, they do rotate him a bit, but that's probably because they've got the squad to do it.
I was going to say that's just an internal thing. So I think my point is it's two separate things. So
yeah, fair enough.
Are Sarries protecting their superstar? I would say not. I would say more likely, as you just said, it's a maybe it's Billy was the one that came out, didn't he, saying he thinks that less games need to be played, and from a player welfare point of view. They need to play less games in a season. Maybe they're rolling something out and they're trialling something. But you're right. You've got to have the game time. Although, to be fair, I think these guys, particularly people like Owen Farrell, they're training the same as normal. They're not being rested on the training field.
Yeah, but you can't replicate that match.
You're right. It's not the same, but missing a couple of weeks of game, of actually playing out on the field when you're training 4 days a week or whatever it is, and you're there involved with the team, I don't think you're going to lose it. Do you know what I mean? If you're, especially when you're at the top of your game, like someone like an Owen Farrell is. But yeah, you are right. I mean, there is a danger that there's a little bit too much of that going on, but I can't see Sarries not wanting to. Who knows? I mean, there've been so many injuries. There've been so many injuries this season to across the board, but so many big names as well. Maybe there's an element of clubs saying these guys are too valuable, they're too important to our success. If we've got a game that isn't as important, we're not going to play them.
And that I agree. I'd like the player welfare's got to come first. I get that. All I'm worried is if these guys, and I'm not saying do they suddenly lose it,
but I'm not thinking of it. I don't
that level.
Yeah, I don't think it's a player welfare thing. I think it's club welfare. It's the club saying, we can't afford to lose, this game, and as it turns out, they did lose it. But we can't afford to lose this game, but we can afford to lose this one. So let's rest him here, and so that he's fit for that one over there. And so maybe it's not about player welfare so much, and it's more about. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It's tactics, which is probably part of the game, and it's probably the way the game's going, particularly if the player welfare is leading in the direction of reducing the number of hours on the field over the course of the season. But yeah, you're right. It's I don't know. I mean,
but the reason
it's hard to argue
about
with
this,
6 losses on the bounce, isn't it?
Yeah, well, exactly.
I kind of want to say it's a one-off bad week, but
yeah, and I'm not, and I'm picking on Saracens here. I do mean this across the board. It's just because best examples, and I'm going to go back to Saracens here. But the reason I'm thinking about it is a couple of weeks ago when it was when Quins beat Saracens, Atoje in that match broke his jaw.
Yeah.
So he's out for sort of earliest he's going to be back is sort of beginning to mid-Jan, maybe even a little bit later. So. And I was thinking at the time, like selfishly as an English fan, just with my England fan hat on, like taking away any human factor, thinking, do you know what? That's probably a good thing. It will give him time to rest. He can have a bit of a break. He'll come back. He'll be firing. It'll be Six Nations. But then I'm thinking, actually, if he comes back, let's say mid-Jan for argument's sake, he comes back then, there'll probably only be a couple of games before Six Nations. I don't think he'll be match fit to play in an international of that intensity.
And he may well not be selected.
Yeah. And hang on. I think Atoje is probably going to make the squad. But I was starting to think, actually, yeah, he is he necessarily going to be, ready to go, ready to give it all, because he'll have been out for that long. I suspect it's some. I mean, I know he's had surgery. I don't know. I suspect he'll be able to do some fitness and stuff, so maybe that won't take as long. But just that sort of match intensity, that just so your head's on, so everything's as sharp. Is that going to be an issue? I think it would be for the first couple of games of Six Nations, definitely.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm looking at, and I'm looking at this more now because, and it'll be interesting because these 7 European Champions Cup matches that I mentioned, they've all been playing reverse fixture this weekend coming. So it'll be interesting to see what the results are that way. Hopefully there won't be another 7 losses.
Turn it all around, 7 straight wins, and then we're left scratching our heads going, well, what the hell does this mean?
Yeah, I can't see that, but possibly, hopefully.
Yeah. Saris have a few issues. They've got Billy obviously is out. He's due back around about the same time, I think. He's currently a bit of a sort of all willy won't he for the Six Nations. Obviously now there's actually Macca's fine, isn't he? Manu, obviously, when's he due back, if ever again?
Well, Manu, I think is due back imminently.
Is he? So he'll be injured again in time for the Six Nations.
Yeah, exactly. He'll get a nice injury. Actually, if he plays it well, he'll get injured just before Christmas, so he can have a nice Christmas, New Year break. Nice. Maybe go on the piss with Denny Solomona, jump off some ferries. Yeah, exactly. Just
really enjoy
it around Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. And to be fair, he's going to need a break, isn't he? Because he'll have played probably, maybe like half a game.
An hour. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, we would like him back.
Oh, we'd love him back, wouldn't we?
I think that would be good too. Him and Billy back at the same time. A bulldozer in the forwards and a bulldozer in the backs. That would be nice.
Yeah. It'd be good to see, but. Yeah, no, sorry, mate. I didn't mean to bring it down though, because I know next week we're going to have a bit of a more of a sort of relaxed episode just before Christmas, a bit of Q&A from questions we've had in. But I wanted to.
No, I think it's an important point to raise. We spend all our days. All the episodes we put out tend to have a very positive spin, and rightly so. With the England Rugby Pod, we believe England are going to win the World Cup in 2019, and so positive mental attitude and all that. We're gonna be positive, but reality also has to have a small role to play, and that I think probably justifies occasionally saying, well, hold on, put the brakes on a second. Let's just collect our thoughts and question a few things. Six losses on the bounce for what we believed to be probably one of the world's best, if not the world's best club side. Doesn't bode particularly well. 7 losses, straight losses across the board for English teams doesn't bode particularly well.
Especially when a Welsh team beats you. Jesus.
Yeah.
That's humiliating. And that was Northampton. But the other thing, so one of the things, just sort of quickly looking at that I guess was a worry. 3 of those losses were to Irish teams, and it wasn't just like Exeter lost to Leinster, and Exeter were at Sandy Park, Quins to Ulster, and Leicester to Munster. So
Irish teams looking strong.
Yeah, the Irish teams are looking strong.
Yeah, Six Nations is going to be interesting because Ireland are always a bit of a thorn in our side. Scotland obviously have been showing pretty remarkable turnaround.
Half their team are snorting coke, so
Is that the reason?
Sorry. One of their players has allegedly snorted cocaine, compared to half of their team are snorting coke. I think.
Hey guys, you heard it here first.
Yeah.
From Dan Wood. That's Daniel Colin Wood.
All right, mate. Let's try and keep those lawyers off my back. But no, Scotland, it's true.
Like, we just won't tell anyone your name. We just won't tell anyone your name.
No. We hit it well there. Good. And by the way, the C isn't for Colin, it's for Christ.
It's for.
I thought it's important to bring that up this time of year.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, mate, that was it. I mean, sorry, is there anything else sort of you wanted to add at all? Or?
No, I think it might seem like a bit of a downer, but I think it poses some questions. It's pause for thought, and it gives us something to ponder between now and And as you say, next week's final episode before our mid-season break. You know, if they can do it in Hollywood and they do it on Sky Atlantic, then we can do it here in the England Rugby Pod. We can have a mid-season break. We're going to go away for a couple of weeks, and we'll come back fresh in the new year. A clear focus on the Six Nations and where England go next. But we will be bringing you one more episode before that, as Dan said, next week. Bit of a Q&A. We recently launched on Spotify, so we've had a bit of an influx of listeners, which is obviously great. And for those of you that listen now, it's another way that you can listen if you've got Spotify. Nice and simple. You can find us on there. But a number of questions have been coming in, which is brilliant. So we're gonna do a bit of a Q&A next weekend. Probably Tuesday, Wednesday. If you've got any questions yourselves, get them across in the meantime. You can ask us absolutely anything. It's an interview with us. Obviously, we will answer them truthfully, or we'll make up really good alternative answers that just sound better and shine a better light on us and make us look good.
And yeah, I mean, like I said, it's absolutely anything. I mean, if you want to know who the Scottish rugby team's Coke dealer is, just ask away, and we'll do the best we can to try and answer everything we can. It's like I want to go to jail.
Anyway, well, on that note, guys, thanks for listening again. As always, rate, review, subscribe, all that on iTunes, or now you can do it, as I say, on Spotify. To get in touch with us, to ask us any questions, you can email us even, englandrugbypod@gmail.com, or best go on Twitter, at England Rugby Pod. We're on Facebook as well, and ping us over your questions there. Check out the website, www.englandrugbypod.com. That's got it, all our past episodes and what have you on there. And yeah, just let everyone know, spread the festive love that is the England Rugby Pod, and join us again on Tuesday.
Thanks a lot for listening, guys.